moving on to the next application area, which is white biotechnology. Now, white biotechnology is related to industrial applications. So whenever we are making the use of biotechnology in the industries, we call it as white biotechnology. Now, so use of biotechnology in industry is regarded as white biotechnology. Now, if you talk about biotechnology, there are many ways in which you can use it. For example, you can use it to enhance the fermentation in the microorganisms, which can lead to faster production of alcohols, acids, etc. So this is one. Then after that, they can also be used in oil recovery. So what basically they will do is that they will consume dense hydrocarbons, and then from there they can reduce the surface tension of the oil, and ultimately it can facilitate easy recovery of the oil. So they will consume the heavy hydrocarbons and they will bring it forward. So in this way they will be able to enhance and fasten the oil recovery process. Then again, after that, in the industries, another way in which you can use it as is preservatives, correct? As preservatives also, we see that some of the microorganisms can be used with the help of biotechnological tools. Then after that, another way in which biotechnology can be helpful is through the production of biofuels. Now you might be confused that we discussed about biofuels also in the green biotechnology portion. Remember that there is no set rules that if you say that a certain thing is green biotechnology, it cannot be blue biotechnology or it cannot be white biotechnology. There's nothing like that. How you are looking at a certain biological application is how you would define that particular branch. So since it is talking about industrial process, that you are talking about using the fuel in the industrial processes or maybe as a fuel for your vehicles, so that's why it is also an industrial application. So same biofuel can become white biotechnology, the same biofuel can become green biotechnology, and the same biofuel can also become blue biotechnology, for example. How? Because if you go back to the discussion of third generation biofuel, in third generation biofuel, what we had also discussed was that you can make the use of algae, correct? So when you are making the use of algae for the production of biofuel, the algae are living underwater. So that's why it also becomes blue biotechnology. At the same time, I can also say that biofuels also can be regarded as grey biotechnology. Why? Because the use of biofuels will help us reduce the amount of fossil fuels that we are using today. So that's why environmentally it has an application. So that's why it also becomes grey biotechnology. Depending on how you are looking at so that's why one product can become different branches of biotechnology, can contribute to different branches of biotechnology. It just depends on how you are looking at the application. Now there are a couple of industrial processes also where we can call them as a part of white biotechnology. One of them is biosorption, and then you have biomining. Now biosorption, what we do in biosorption is that we make the use of some of the organisms, especially microorganisms, where what they'll do is that they will be able to concentrate, they will be able to bind and concentrate heavy metals from aqueous solution and even very dilute aqueous solutions. So you will be able to collect all the heavy metals from an aqueous solution, and then you can very easily remove them from this aqueous solution. So this also becomes a part of white biotechnology. Then after that you have biomining. Now why biomining? Because you are making the use of biological resources for mining purposes. So many a times we see that many of the microorganisms can be used for that. Not only microorganisms, there are certain plants also which are capable of doing biomining. So for example, when we talk about biomining, this is an approach for extraction of desired minerals from the host with the help of living organisms. So most of the times it can be done either through microbes or microorganisms, or it can also be done with the help of plants. Now when we do it with the help of plants, we give it a specific name which is called as phytomining. Alright, it is called as phytomining. Now phyto, whenever you see this word phyto, just remember that we are talking about plants. So phytomining is an approach in which mining is done with the help of plants. So for example, what happens is that roots of many of the plants, they will absorb the metals or they'll absorb anything that is in the vicinity, and they will be collected in the roots. And then after that, these roots can be taken away and these roots can be burnt, and from the ashes we can collect these metals. So for example, copper. In case of copper, many a times if copper is present in the soil, the roots of the trees will collect copper along with the minerals and other nutrients, and this copper will remain in the roots. Alright, It will remain in the roots, and from the roots, when the roots are taken away, the roots will be burnt. From the ash, copper will be collected. So this is what is done. So some plants absorb copper compounds through their roots. As a result, copper compounds remain concentrated in their roots. The plant can be burnt to produce ash that contains copper. So this is how phytomining can be carried out. So that's why either microbes will be used or plants will be used in most of the cases. Then after that we have blue biotechnology. So what is blue biotechnology? Anything to do with water. Whenever we are making the use of biotechnology in or underwater or any application related to water, in that case we'll call it as blue biotechnology. So there are many ways in which we can use it. For example, we can use microorganisms to clean water bodies like oil spills, and for that we have a very specific, and to contain oil spill we have something very specific which is called as oil zapper. Now this oil zapper is basically a mixture of 5 different kinds of bacteria, and this mixture is able to contain oil spill. When you use this mixture called as oil zapper on an oil spill, what they do is these bacteria will go on the oil spill and they will start converting hydrocarbons into carbon dioxide and water. So what happens is ultimately all this hydrocarbon that has spilled over the surface of the ocean or the sea, it is converted into carbon dioxide. So in this manner, oil spill can be contained with the help of oil zapper. So a mixture of 5 types of bacteria which feed on hydrocarbon compounds present in the crude oil. Oil zapper converts hydrocarbons into carbon dioxide and water. Then apart from that, biotechnology can create transgenic aquatic animals with desired features as well. Just something what we do also for terrestrial plants. Something similar can be done for aquatic plants as well. Then after that, biofuel, especially the algae based biofuels. They can also be called as a case of blue biotechnology, correct? So in this manner we see that blue biotechnology also has different uses. Then after that we have use of biotechnology in environment, or something that can also be called as grey biotechnology. So grey biotechnology, when we make the use of biotechnology for the environment, it is called as grey biotechnology. Now this process, when you are trying to save the environment or conserve the environment with the help of biotechnology, it becomes bioremediation. So what is the meaning of bioremediation? When you are trying to clean the environment with the help of living organisms. So because you are trying to clean the environment, it is remediation, and because it is happening with the help of biological sources, that's why it is called as bioremediation. Now bioremediation can be carried out in 2 ways. It can be in-situ bioremediation or it can be ex-situ bioremediation. Just as in terms of conservation also we say in-situ conservation and ex-situ conservation. So what is the meaning of in-situ? In-situ is when you are trying to do the remediation technique at the site of the problem, or it is called as in-situ bioremediation. And when you are taking the problem away from the site, then in that case you call it as ex-situ bioremediation, right? So that's why there are 2 ways in which remediation techniques can be carried out. It can be either at the site of the problem or it can be away from the site of the problem. And depending on that, you will either call it as in-situ remediation or you will call it as ex-situ bioremediation. So first, when we talk about in-situ remediation, it refers to the treatment of waste at its site. So that's why, as I said, that if you are carrying out the bioremediation techniques at the site of the problem, it is called as in-situ bioremediation. So there are different kinds of in-situ remediation techniques. You have biosparging, bioventing, bioaugmentation and bioculture. So let's try to understand what is the meaning of all these terms. First you have biosparging. Now in case of biosparging, what we try to do is that we try to treat the waste at the site with the help of certain techniques. What do we do here is that we make the use of microorganisms to biodegrade organic constituents in the saturated zone. Now what is saturated zone? Saturated zone is the zone in the soil or the part of the soil which is near the water table. Alright. So for example, you have, let's say, the surface of the earth like this, and as you start going down, you know that after a point you will have the water table. So the soil that you have at this level, alright, soil that you have at this level which will not be able to contain any more moisture will be called as saturated zone. This will be called as saturated zone. Now what is the meaning of saturated zone? When you talk about, let's say, surface of the earth, you know that at the surface of the earth the moisture content will be little lower, but as you start to go downwards towards the water table, the moisture content of the soil will be higher, correct? So for example, if you talk about the soil, you have the top layer of the soil like this, and after a point you will reach the water table, correct? You will reach the water table. So when you talk about the kind of soil that you have at the level which is just above the water table, when you have the soil just above the water table, this is the part which can be called as saturated zone. This is the part that can be called as saturated zone. Why? Because it will not be able to contain any more moisture. It cannot contain any more moisture. It has all the moisture that it can sustain. Alright. So that's why this zone will be called as saturated zone. So when bioremediation techniques are carried out in the saturated zone, it is called as biosparging. So what we do in biosparging is that we will take all the oxygen and the nutrients which are required, and under high pressure it will be injected. Alright, it will be injected to this level. Now why high pressure? Because you are going down below, correct? So that's why low pressure will not suffice. You will have to inject the nutrients and the oxygen at very high pressure. Now as soon as the oxygen and nutrients reach this level, the microorganisms which reside in this particular saturated zone, they will be activated, because they now have higher amount of nutrients and oxygen. So that's why they will be able to work faster. So in this manner we are able to carry out the bioremediation technique in the saturated zone, and this is called as biosparging. So in biosparging, air or oxygen and nutrients are injected at high pressure to increase the biological activity of indigenous microorganisms and to enhance the decomposition activity, correct? So this is what will happen, that as soon as the oxygen and the nutrients reach the level where you have all these microorganisms, the microorganisms with the help of higher amounts of oxygen and nutrients will be activated, and the decomposition process will be faster. Then after that you have bioventing. Now bioventing is also a very similar process compared to biosparging. The main difference is that this is carried out in the unsaturated zone. So unsaturated zone is the zone of the soil which is at this level. Alright, at this level you have the unsaturated zone, because it can sustain more moisture. More moisture can be given to this level. So that's why this layer is called as unsaturated zone. So bioventing will be carried out in a very similar manner as compared to biosparging, just that now you will not need high pressure. Alright, this can be carried out at lower pressure because you are not going down below as much as it was required for biosparging. So air, nutrients will be supplied to the microorganisms. Microorganisms, as they receive these nutrients and the oxygen, they will start to work in a faster manner. The entire process will become faster, and that's why the decomposition process will also become faster. So activity of indigenous bacteria and stimulates the natural in situ biodegradation of hydrocarbons in the soil by inducing air or oxygen flow at low pressure in the unsaturated zone, right? So just remember that this will happen at low pressure. Why low pressure? Because we are almost at the surface of the earth. Then after that you have bioaugmentation. So bioaugmentation is when you carry the microorganisms to the site of the problem, to the site of the waste, and you let the process happen there. The process of decomposition happen there. So the example that we had taken of oil zapper. So oil zapper becomes an example of bioaugmentation. That you are taking the oil zapper, you are placing it at the site of the waste, and you are letting the microorganisms work. So because it is happening at the site of the problem, at the site of the waste, that's why it is still called as in-situ technique. Alright. So in this technology, microorganisms are imported to the contaminated soil to carry out degradation of organic waste. For example, oil zapper. Then after that you have bioculture. So bioculture basically is when you do the bioremediation in the septic tanks. So microorganisms will be carried out there. Microorganisms will start decomposing all the organic waste that has developed in the septic tanks, and this will be called as bioculture. So bioculture refers to the use of blend of bacteria that selectively produce enzymes for the degradation of fats, oils, proteins, starch and carbohydrates. So remember, it is happening in the septic tanks. Now the other way to do bioremediation is ex-situ bioremediation. What is ex-situ? When you are taking the contamination away from its original site, carrying out the bioremediation techniques there, and then bringing it back to the original location. This will be called as ex-situ bioremediation. So the first way to do bioremediation, ex-situ bioremediation, is through land farming. So what do we do in land farming? We will take the contaminated soil, alright, we'll prepare a bed, the soil will be prepared or spread over this prepared bed, and periodically it will be tilled there. so that the decomposition process and the degradation process of the organic waste can happen with the help of microorganisms. And once all this process has been carried out, the same soil again will be brought back to the original location. So this is called as land farming. Then after that you have biopile. So in case of biopile, there are two things that are done. You can say that in a manner it is a combination of land farming and composting. So what we do is, again we'll take the soil away from the site, we'll prepare a bed just like we did in land farming, and then after that we will let compost be formed from here. So we will make sure that the amount of nutrients being provided is adequate. All the other nutrients, let's say oxygen for example and water etc., they are also being provided adequately, and all these things are being provided. pH level is being controlled and will form a kind of a pile. Sometimes the pile can be as high as almost 20 feet. So this kind of a pile will be produced, and then we will let all these microorganisms act on it, and this kind of a prepared bed will remain there for maybe more than 3 months of time, up to 6 months of time, and we will let the entire process happen. And once everything has been done, it will again be brought back to the location. It will be brought back to the original location, or maybe if not required, it can be transported somewhere else. So a hybrid of land farming and land composting. So excavated soil are spread over a prepared bed, formed into compost piles, and then enclosed for treatment. So what kind of treatment? Moisture, heat, nutrients, oxygen, pH, all these will be controlled so that the bioremediation technique can be enhanced. And this process will be carried on for 3 to 6 months, and then after that it will be brought back to the original location. Then after that you have phytoremediation. Another technique is phytoremediation. Now phytoremediation, remember, whenever we have phyto, it means that you are carrying out the process with the help of plants. So in phytoremediation technique, what we do is that we will make the use of the trees. For example, the neem tree. The neem tree is known for its properties that it will be able to kill some of the microorganisms, harmful microorganisms. It will be able to treat the given area of any poisonous element or any heavy element that would be present there. So all these properties are known in the neem tree. So it is a kind of phytoremediation technique. So use of plants to remove contamination from the soil and water. So neem plant absorbs poisonous elements, reduces the growth of harmful microorganisms. Then another technique is called as phyto extraction. This is, you can say, a sub technique of phytoremediation. One of the ways of carrying out phytoremediation could be phyto extraction. So phyto meaning plants, extraction meaning extracting something. So if you remember the copper example that we had taken, that the roots of the plants will extract copper from the soil, and then you can burn the plant or burn the roots to get this copper from the ash. Correct? So something similar can be done here also. That if we know that a given soil has heavy elements or poisonous elements, roots of the plants can be used to absorb all these poisonous elements from the soil and thus make the soil healthier. So this will be called as phyto extraction. Then after that you have mycoremediation. Now myco is whenever you are making the use of fungi. Whenever you are making the use of fungi, you call it as mycoremediation. So involves the use of fungus such as mycelia to decontaminate an area. Mycorrhiza is another type of fungus which is used for bioremediation. So these techniques, whenever you are making the use of fungi, you will call it as mycoremediation. So these are some of the ways in which bioremediation techniques are carried out. Multiple ways in which bioremediation techniques are carried out. Remember that these are the terms that can directly come in your prelims examination. In your mains examination, maybe direct question may not come on these topics, but it's very simple. If they have to ask, they can very simply ask, how does biotechnology help in the cleaning of environment, or how does it help in the betterment of environment or conservation of environment. So there are many ways in which they can ask you this question. In the prelims examination, one of these terms, all these terms that we have seen, biosparging, bioventing, bioaugmentation, bioculture, so all these kind of terms, they can just ask the meaning of the term and give you 4 options. So that's why you have to be prepared for both the kinds of scenarios. Let's look at some of the questions that have come in the past. In the context of solving pollution problems, what is or are the advantages of bioremediation technique? 1. It is a technique for cleaning up pollution by enhancing the same biodegradation process that occurs in nature. Do any contaminant with heavy metals such as cadmium and lead can be readily and completely treated by bioremediation using microorganisms? Genetic engineering can be used to create microorganisms specifically designed for bioremediation. So let's look at the statements one by one. First statement is, it is a technique for cleaning of pollution by enhancing the same biodegradation process that occurs in nature. This is the very thing that we try to do. For example, if you go back to biosparging and bioventing techniques, in both the cases microorganisms could have worked, but we were providing them extra nutrients, oxygen, etc., so that we can enhance the activity of these microorganisms. So that's why this is correct. Look at the second statement. There are many points here which are extreme points. Any contaminant with heavy metals such as cadmium and lead can be readily and completely treated by bioremediation using microorganisms. Now, first of all, in most of these cases, we are using phyto remediation, right? We are making the use of plants for bioremediation, correct? So that's why, first of all, we are not really doing it with the help of microorganisms. In very limited cases, we are doing it, and that too, the binding and concentration of all these heavy elements with the help of microorganisms is not a very easy task. It takes a lot of effort to do it. So that's why saying that it is readily and completely happening and any contamination can be taken care of, that is very extreme to consider. So that's why statement number 2 is wrong. Statement number 3, genetic engineering can be used to create microorganisms specifically designed for bioremediation. This is correct, and this is precisely what we are doing with the example of oil zapper. So that's why 3 is also correct. So correct answer here will be C, that is 1 and 3 only. Moving on, another question that had come way back in 2011. Recently oil zapper was in news. What is it? We have been talking about oil zapper. Look at the 4 options. I am very sure that you know what the correct answer is. It is an eco-friendly technology for remediation of oily sludge and oil spills. Looks like the correct answer. It is the latest technology developed for undersea oil exploration. Nothing to do with oil exploration. B is wrong. It is a genetically engineered high biofuel ending maize variety. Nothing to do with any maize variety or biofuels. So wrong. It is the latest technology to control the accidentally caused flames in the oil well. So we have not talked about flames. We have talked about oil spills. So that's why A is correct and all the other options given here are wrong. So this is a direct simple question that has already come in the examination.